Hello and welcome back to the Hyperspace Podcast. My name is Sam, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Michael Ghosh. Michael, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, and we are back here reviewing episode 11, Break It Down of The Bad Batch, called Devil's Deal, a little play on the words of Deal with the Devil. And yeah, let's get right into talking about it. First of all, Michael, what did you think of this episode?
I think you said it perfectly before we were recording. It's a Clone Wars episode, effectively. Not it's a Clone Wars episode featuring the Bad Batch, really, rather than anything else. But that's good. It's nice to see us go to a planet again that we haven't seen in a little while, and then revisit it.
Yeah, certainly. It was very Clone Wars. In fact, like after watching this episode, I did go back and watch the Ryloth arc from I think it's season 1 of Clone Wars because that's probably my favorite arc in Clone Wars, and I love Ryloth. So for me, it was really exciting to go back there. And yeah, let's break it down. So starting on the planet we talk about, then Ryloth with Orn Tar, the senator that everyone hates. We have Chamson Dula, and they start addressing a crowd, not happy with a military occupation. And Shamson Dula, after we saw him in Clone Wars, was very. He was trying to fight, lots of fighting, but here he is focusing on peace. I mean, what do you think? I get that they've been fighting for so long. I don't blame them for wanting peace, but this is quite a change from the Syndulla we knew in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, he's a bit. He's getting on. He's changed and he's different to how he is in Rebels as well.
Hmm.
Because he's a bit close in the Rebels. He's close to the Clone Wars. It's sort of. I think he's so war weary. He just wants to stop fighting, and I think because he thinks it's the closest he's going to get to the peace he wants, he's willing to settle for it.
Yeah, I mean, there'll definitely be a point where he's fighting Clone Wars, and then here, as you said, he's quite war weary. But then, as we see towards the end of the episode, he realizes that there's no choice but he kind of has to fight. We then go to Harrison Dula. We haven't seen since Rebels. We saw her in the new game as well, Fight Squadrons, but we love a bit of Hera content. We see her and Chopper, not on the Ghost, but they're spying on a mining facility after being sent by Gobi before they are found by clones and taken back. It was so good in this episode to see Hera as like a child. We see her where all her flying why she liked flying and why she was always
Mm.
flying, and that was from a young age. She's always wanting to be in the sky, flying between planets. We see her look up and use her hands as if it's a starship. It was really cool having Harrison Dula in something that wasn't Rebels.
I think it's nice when we see all these characters who are not just Clone Wars characters, Rebels characters, sort of grow beyond that one show. I think like when I think it's we had the same sort of reaction, I imagine, when we were watching the Clone Wars, when we saw these Clone Wars characters be involved in Rebels, and we see how their lives have progressed. It's nice seeing the other way around, where their lives started, or like you said with Hera, like we see like also she wants to fight as well, and like she wants to be involved in what's going on, and that's what we see in Rebels as well,
Yeah.
and we see where she gets it from with her with her parents as well.
Yeah, totally. Her parents definitely have that kind of fighting spirit. Luckily, we had, despite being in a restricted area, Captain Hauser, clone captain, doesn't report it, and he, I think, is the main topic of conversation through this episode. Because throughout this episode, he's doesn't really react that well to orders. Like he's told to do something and he's hesitant quite a lot of the time if it's going to hurt someone or if it's going to have a bad outcome. And even at the start, he's talking to Cham Syndulla and he's just trying to reassure him. I mean, the question is here, what's going on with him? Because every other clone that we've seen is just brainwashed zombie, zero personality. But he is like a clone we saw back in Clone Wars. Do you think he's had his chip removed, or his chip doesn't work, or it's wearing off? What do you think's the deal with Captain Hauser?
I think it's a bit closer to the Rex situation where he's enough of an individual and he's strong enough to have resisted some of it. Maybe I don't think it's his chip's malfunction or something. Well, that's possible. I don't. His chip is most certainly not being removed because if his chip was removed, he would not be like still with the Empire. Because I think if you'd removed your chip, you would have understood what was going on, right? But certainly a malfunctioning chip would make sense, or like I said, just strong enough personality. But he kept his colors as well. Like he really like stark contrast that all of the clones who should have like similar colors to him, but they just have all these white armor.
Yeah, and it's quite nice armor. It's like a teal. It actually looks really
Mm,
sick, and
it looks
he's
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so cool. It really is. But yeah, he's definitely we've seen one episode of him, and he's just such a likable character already. And
Mm.
as we were talking about earlier, this really reinforces the fact it's basically like a Clone Wars episode, not a Bad Batch episode. We had
I think it'd be interesting if they brought him back in. He will be in the next episode. I think this is just a possibility, but I think it'd be cool to have another reg in the Bad Batch, like an actual reg. So you never know. Or if they removed his chip, I think that would be really interesting to see because they might actually be able to convince him to do it.
Yeah, I I I have a
I don't
feeling
think it will
that
happen.
I have a feeling that he won't like. I don't think he'll last the series. I think he'll be
No,
killed
they'll kill him
potentially.
off. Yeah, they'll kill him off. Just he would be a cool character if they like wanted to spin something off, or if they wanted to do comics or something. I think he's a character who people are going to like or already like a lot.
Yeah, no, certainly. It's definitely an idea that I'd be behind. We have next we have Rampard and Orn Free Tar discussing about trying to take out Gobi and Cham. And I think it's clear Rampard is getting more clever with how he goes about his business and the fact that especially later in the episode he waits for um he kind of lets them capture him and before so that Crosshair can shoot him and like kind of
Oh yeah,
frame him,
yeah.
and he's definitely becoming smarter. And in this scene with On Freetown and Rampart, we finally see Crosshair without his helmet on, and we speculated they would affect his shooting or something, but that is clearly not true. He has
And
despite having a massive scar down his head, and it doesn't really look like it's been affected. Do you think?
no, like you can see his scarring on his face, but his helmet was off. But yeah, otherwise he seems to be doing perfectly fine.
Yeah, but a few people are speculating that this did affect his chip, and that he is now working for the Empire just because he's kind of comfortable there, and not because he's being controlled. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be interesting, but it's hard to tell. Although we didn't get the sort of lines we expect. We didn't hear anything of Crosshair actually this episode, not really.
Mm,
So I think that's the sort of theory we have to see in another episode because the sort of the way he was talking or has been talking in previous episodes is what we expect if he was being controlled by the chip, and if not, then we'll see the difference.
yeah. We then go to the back to the mining facility. Cham and Eleni are inspecting the facility with Rampart and then realize it's very heavily armored, and they aren't happy with this, and it mines Dunium, which after some research, found out it was used in the construction of the Death Star, which isn't
Oh,
big.
that makes a lot of sense.
So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
so Ryloth is one of the places they're mining to get materials for the Death Star.
It does explain why they're willing to protect Ryloth as well.
Yeah,
I don't think yeah, I don't think it's strategically important, which is why it was like left, like kept getting invaded during the Clone Wars.
mm, yeah, it does make sense now that um, this is the planet they're going for. Plus, it does help that they're, to be honest, they're not like they don't have a great military. Like, really, they have like rebels, I guess, but they're not really heavily militarized, so they could be taken over pretty easily.
I think maybe by clones, but I think when they move to stormtroopers, not so much because the people we've been fighting on Ryloth have been fighting since the start of the war, pretty much.
Mm,
So they have like 5 years of experience, which means if they're against newer clones, it's probably a fairly decent fight. I
mm.
think the clones are obviously out overwhelm them, but with stormtroopers, I just don't think they would be able to hold up so well against an experienced fighting force. But then
Yeah,
we're not there yet, so
yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
yeah.
We um, we have Gobi and Hera then going on a mission to a nearby planet, and we finally see the Bad Batch. The reason the episode is still called Bad Batch, they do appear, even though there were moments at the start where I didn't actually think they would appear. But yeah, they go to a planet, and the Bad Batch arrive to give them weapons and supplies, which have been sent by Sid. And we get some interaction between Omega and Hera, and they kind of bond. And I I think this might foreshadow a potential reunion between these two, not just in a future episode. I think that the Bad Batch will definitely come back next episode, but because they're, oh, what were
Are
you
you,
say?
are you speculating what I'm thinking, which is
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka? Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. We are speculating the same thing. I think a lot of these new characters, they're going to find someone who can play them in live action and do it because they seem like they want to do it, and we know they're already connecting Mandalorian and Clone Wars, and they've done that. And they've done that more than once. It's not just Fennec Shand, it's also the Dark Troopers and numerous other things. And it seems like it's getting closer to, like you said, the Ahsoka series. We'll
Mhm.
have to see. And I know they don't want to confirm which characters from Rebels are going to show up in it.
Yeah,
Like, there's no official confirmation Sabine's going to be in it, but she must be in it, right?
surely, surely she'll be in
Surely.
it.
And so we know Ezra's going to be in it because he's been cast supposedly. It seems like they're going to put these characters in from the Bad Batch into, at least some of them will make it into Ahsoka or Mandalorian or some of the other shows.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I also kind of
Mm,
foreshadows that Omega and Hera will probably end up flying a ship in this show at some point, because Hera
mm,
is always talking about flying and how she never gets. There'll definitely be a scene where she ends up flying with Omega after their conversation. But
mm.
it was, yeah, as we said, Ahsoka show would be really cool, and it definitely foreshadows that. I also think Omega could turn up in the Book of Boba Fett because she's
Mm.
technically his sister, and it would be quite cool if she's put into that Andy Ahsoka show with Hera, but like also like with her brother, it could definitely be something that happens.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see any reason why not, but I guess they've got to cast it, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. We then have Hera, Gobi, and Gobi's wife. I guess this person's
Mm.
there. This Twi'lek's there, like throughout all of it with Gobi, and I assume it's Gobi's wife, but she never really gets named, so I'm just going to call her Gobi's wife. They get shot down by Crosshair and get captured. Crosshair with an unreal snipe that was like
Mm.
miles away, but that's just what Crosshair does. And Hera is convicted of treason, which was the Rampart's plan to try and get Cham into it and Eleni, and both of them go to rescue Hera. And to be fair, they take down all the clone slash stormtroopers pretty easily, and take over the Juggernaut. Um, and one thing that was interesting is, like the Bad Batch in a few episodes ago, I think it was actually last episode, they're using stun, so you can see that they aren't trying to hurt anyone. They literally are just trying to stun them to like
Mm,
get their
yeah,
daughter back. They aren't like looking to like cause any harm to these people.
yeah. I did. I think we had noticed in the Bad Batch. It was really strange how they suddenly changed to stun,
Mm,
and like it was so late in the show. But I guess especially when they learn about the inhibitor chips, they realize it's not the clone's fault.
yeah.
They
No.
really realize that. Although I guess it's a different situation, but yeah, I think also Cham has a lot of like sympathy for the clones because he's fought the entire war with them.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
So
the clones have been on the planet for like the entire war and have saved their lives, as he mentioned in his speech countless times. But yeah, we then have Crosshair killing Orn Free Tar, which I think we were all happy to see.
yeah,
After Sham is persuaded not to do it by Eleni and Hauser showing again that he is just a good guy. And yeah, Crosshair hits the shot. Ormfritar is dead, and this is another retcon. We we talked about retcon earlier because in the book Lords of the Sith, it is heavily implied to the fact that I'd say it's almost said that he gets killed in that book. So, Michael, we've got another retcon. What do you think?
well, I haven't read that book, so I'd have to check it out. But like I said, they do these weird things where they're not quite retconning stuff, but it's not. It contradicts a little bit of what happens in the book.
Mm, yeah.
I feel like a lot of this show has done a lot of retconning and then not like I guess the opposite of like reconning stuff
Yeah.
from books. Like some of it really solidifies what happens in like some books, and some of it really like contradicts what's implied at least in the books. But yeah, that's just Disney Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. And in that book, they say that Eleni is already dead. So we could see next episode where Eleni
Mm,
gets killed, which, to be honest, I could see is quite likely protecting Hera. I could see that as a
mm.
big possibility of happening.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable, and I think having it done on like screen is probably like one of the best things they could do if they've got Hera for
Mm,
her development
yeah,
as a character. So probably, and I think it'd probably affect Bad Batch as well, because I think, right, that next episode when they bring in weapons, they're going to end up trying to help Ryloth
yeah.
a bit
We'll
more. They'll be more heavily involved in the next episode, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to you in a second about what you think should happen next episode. But yeah, after Crosshair kills them and that it happens, reinforcements arrive. Hera escapes with Chopper, but Chab and Eleni arrested. We kind of hear Rampart giving the order to go and find Hera. Hera kind of looks scared in the speeder with Chopper. End of episode.
Mm,
And an episode I really enjoyed on Ryloth, and I I saw I saw a TikTok which and I was inspired by this TikTok to look it up, and the last few episodes have been named, and the next episode is called Rescue on Ryloth. So I think we can infer what happens next episode. I think the Bad Batch are definitely going to come to help, aren't they? They're going to come to help
mhm,
and try and rescue Hera, um, Cham, and we'll see what happens to Eleni. But rescue on Ryloth, it can't be like trying to free the planet, can it? Can it? Because
no,
there's only a few people in the Bad Batch.
I I think Hera might be taken off world by the Bad Batch.
Do you?
That's I think they'll leave Cham, but I think Cham may ask them to take Hera with Omega, and I think maybe right. This is I don't know if this will happen, but I think that would make sense because it makes sense for Cham to want her to go off world because he does not want her to have to live through a war, and it would explain how she learns how to fly, maybe with the Bad Batch. I'm not saying she would stay permanently, but it may be the case where she is taken off world for a bit, or she they take her off world until the Empire cools down a bit on Ryloth or something.
Mm.
Possibly, I think if it's called Rescue on Ryloth, I imagine someone's getting saved, and my theory is it's going to be Hera is going to be taken off world, possibly.
Yeah. Well, Cham also we see in Rebels, so we know he survives this. So they could probably they probably take him off world as well. I could definitely see.
Possibly, although he is on Ryloth in the Rebels show, which is why I wonder whether it's just Hera that's taken
Mm.
off world. It could
Yeah.
be the case that they take all three of them. They take Hera, Gobi, and Cham off world, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. No, that's you're we'll have to see, but I'm excited. The
Mm,
last moving on past next episode, the last two episodes are called Infested and a War Mantle. War Mantle we heard in an early episode, and it was mentioned in Rogue One as well, which is the project, which is the transition from clones to stormtroopers. So it looks like we will finally get that in the like it fully happening, because we kind of have it partially with Crosshair's little crew, but we'll see it properly in the last episode. You mentioned earlier that you think the rest of the show will be on Ryloth, but Infested,
doesn't sound like it. No,
yeah,
doesn't
Infested and
sound like it.
Warmantle sounds like kind of Camino based episodes.
Yeah. I mean, we did predict earlier that we'd go back to community. The only reason I wonder whether they'd stay on Ryloth is because they've set it up so well
Mm,
for them to
yeah,
stay at least another episode. And it sounds like they're going to be going back to community. I wonder how they're going to deal with Crosshair
yeah,
because I think he'll be dealt with in the end of this show, at the end of this season. The one thing we I'm almost 100% sure I can confirm is this will not be one season of a show.
hundred
Just
percent.
look at it. This is not this is you don't do this kind of a setup for a world or characters and just do one season. They wouldn't. Amiga hasn't really done that much, but she's been set up so well.
Yeah,
And if there was one season of this was going to be carried on. The characters are going to be carried on in different show.
yeah.
I
No,
think if they weren't.
this has to be multi-seasonal. Like I don't, I just can't like comprehend that it wouldn't be, because this episode, or there'd be more episodes that were just like intense without. There's a lot of world building episodes. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is definitely a world building episodes for like almost Rebels and like the early character of Harrison Dula. I mean, we get it's almost a cameo from the Bad Batch, but we've seen more of
Yeah,
like cameos from other characters in other show, and this is their show. So yeah, for me, it has to be multi-seasonal.
there's not. Yeah,
If it's
that's
not, then I'll be sad.
I think there'll be a lot of us who are sad. I think it's a lot of it doesn't make sense for it to be not multi-season, which is why I think we've struggled a little bit predicting how they're going to end this, at least from the start. It
Mm,
was hard to predict how they'd end this because you weren't sure how they were going to do the episode. But now, we're basically at the end. It doesn't seem viable for them not to do another season, even if it's just one more season. I think they've done so much world building, and also people are going to say, "Oh, well, the animation models are done." Well, the animation models have been done. It makes sense to do more. But yeah,
exactly.
I think that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that wraps up our
Yep.
podcast, breaking down episode 11 of The Bad Batch Devil Steel. Tell us what you think. Thank you, Michael, for joining us, especially on your holiday.
Thank you for having me as always.
No worries. And yeah, remember, like, comment, subscribe, turn that notification bell on. And as always, may the force be with you.